Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by Auto Value and Bumper to Bumper and TireRack.com. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
And welcome again, everyone, to MotorWeek podcast number 349. John Davis here and ready to go with our take on three very different vehicles today, but they all are about performance in one way or another. First up, a class of vehicle we don't do very often on our podcast since there's only three players, heavy-duty pickup trucks. And yes, they are all about performing tasks that no other class of vehicle can focus on. And we're talking today about the 2025 Ram HD lineup. Second, a truck, but a much smaller one, and one that is a mainstay of a segment that is outperforming the general car market these days, the mid-size truck segment. I'm talking about the 2025 Nissan Frontier and its fresh updates. And finally, we go to our more normal definition of performance, in this case, very high performance, the 2025 BMW M5. Joining me today in all their splendor, our two-wheeling reporter, Brian Robinson.
With my very abnormal performance.
That's right, but it's their performance nonetheless. Over-the-edge reporter, Greg Carlos.
Glad to be back.
And our digital producer extraordinaire, Jessica Ray.
Always happy to be here.
We're always glad to have all of you. Okay. First up, the 2025 Ram Heavy Duty. Not all new, but with significant upgrades inside, outside, and under the hood. Brian, what do you make of the Ram's latest brute?
So with heavy-duty trucks, it's all about that torque, right? So just for that reason, the 2025 Ram heavy-duty, they used to have two versions of their Cummins diesel, inline 6.7-liter turbo diesel. They got rid of the standard output version. So all HD Rams 2500, 3500 now come with the high output version, which is 430 horsepower, 10 over last year, and 1,075 pound-feet of torque.
Did they say why?
What's that?
It's like just not many people taking the standard output, or?
Yeah, most people opt for the high output. Plus, they can then say they have the most standard torque. It's 25 more than the standard Super Duty, although the Super Duty, the high output has like 1,200.
But it's all about bragging rights.
Yeah, it's all about, that's exactly what the heavy-duty truck feels like. So you can still get the standard engine is the 6.4-liter Hemi, 405 horsepower, 429 pound-feet of torque. The big news really is a new 8-speed transmission. It's a ZF unit, which they've had at Stellantis and Chrysler for a while, but it's the new heavy-duty version, and it allowed them to scale back the number of rear gears that they have. There used to be a whole bunch. All diesels now come with a 342 rear. You can still get a 373 or a 410 with the Hemi. But that transmission really makes a huge difference with towing. We did, and some extensive towing. They had a full lineup out there, everything from like a landscaping trailer dump bed with full of dirt to like the biggest toy hauling RV you could get, fifth wheel. And literally everything in between. That one was obviously massive, that RV, but the heaviest thing they had was flatbed trailer with this huge tractor on it.
Really?
That came close to maxing it out. Max towing is 36,610 pounds. That's with the 3,500 dually. With the fifth wheel hitch, obviously.
So what's that? 4 times probably what the vehicle weighs?
Oh,
more than that.
Yeah. Definitely more than that.
Yeah, 5 times.
And the 2,500 I think maxes out at like 20,000. But the unique thing about this event, we were out in southern Nevada, Arizona, on the Davis Dam grade, which, if you know anything about heavy-duty trucks, so you stay in Laughlin, right? You cross the river, Colorado River, over to Arizona. You're immediately on Highway 68, which from the river goes uphill at a 6% grade for 12 miles.
Wow.
So that's where they all do their heavy duty testing in the summer. If you go out there in July, August, they're all out there to the point that it's actually part of the SAE rankings now.
No kidding.
So if you say your vehicle tows 30,000 pounds,
It's got to do it there.
It has to do 30,000 pounds over 100 degrees temperature with the AC cranked full up that hill and maintain a speed of 45 miles per hour. I think it's 45. Don't quote me on the speed. But anyway.
That average speed, or like it has to never
maintain
dip
it.
below
Yeah, it can't dip.
You got to get up there, and it's like, keep it going.
So anyway, I made dozens of runs up this road with all these different configurations. It's a pretty cool place to be. And man, the towing experience in the Ram is just phenomenal. That 8-speed makes a huge difference. Super smooth. You don't get all the upshift, downshift harshness you get, pulling a big trailer uphill. But most impressive is just all the drive mode stuff that goes with it. Especially when you get to the top, you turn around and you go down. Now you're going down a 6% grade for 12 miles.
And you got all that stuff in the back pushing you down the road.
Set the cruise control at 65, and you don't have to touch a pedal the whole way.
Wow.
It's got smart engine braking, which will kick in, hold it. It goes back and forth between engine braking and downshifting, so it's not working either one too much. And it's got a chart that you can follow everything that's going on, trans temps, brake temps, everything. But literally, you never touch the brake. The vehicle never uses the brakes. It just exhaust brakes and downshifts the whole way down the hill, and it's super smooth. It's amazing. Like if you've never pulled that kind of weight. I've never certainly done it that easily before, but even without, the Ram's still the only one with the coil spring rear, even in the heavy duties. So even without a load, those things are made to carry weight, right? So when you're driving around without a load, it's super stiff and hard, but not with the Ram. With that coil spring rear, it even rides nice.
That was always the argument for not doing it.
Yeah, it even rides nice without a load on it. Starting price $47,000 for a tradesman, white paint, rubber floors, hard plastic, everything, all the way up to 77.5, somewhere around there for the 3,500 Bighorn Limited, I think, or Limited Bighorn, one of the other. But you can easily spend six figures. The first one I got in out of the airport was a quad cab limited. It was like $102,000. But just amazing what they've done as far as towing tech. I mean, all the numbers are great and all that. It's great that you can tow 36,000 pounds, but when you can tow 30,000 worth of tractor up that type of thing, and it just be not stress-inducing or white-knuckling it at all, it's just pleasurable experience, calm and quiet and smooth.
What about the environment? I mean, these things are not just for work sites anymore.
Yeah, that's true. The interior is updated a little bit. Nothing too crazy. You can get 3 different sizes on the U-Connect, like an 8, a 12, and a 14, I think. But even the base, like tradesman's, come with full touchscreen
with a touchscreen infotainment.
Yeah. The different gauges from analog, all the way up through. You can get the Jeep passenger screen now that they
really.
You can even get that now.
So the passengers got something to do besides getting bored.
Again, simple vinyl seats all the way up to full leather and all that treatment. Let's see what else. One other thing they did was they're all column shift. They had a mix of some were column, some had the goofy dial on the dash. I think pretty much everyone in the heavy duty world hated the dial.
Yeah.
But a big thing was fleet buyers. They said, they want it consistent across the line. They don't want.
So they don't have to retrain their drivers every 10 minutes.
If you've ever plowed snow, that the column shifter is where it's at. That dial is just a nightmare trying to plow snow with. So that was a big improvement. Any other questions? Hit me.
That was pretty thorough.
Is that the most you've ever towed?
Certainly. I've towed trailers like all day long, camping trailers.
I meant like weight.
But weight-wise? Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've never. I think we were pushing like 30,000 pounds with that tractor on there. I've definitely never towed anything.
Why do you think we're seeing so many more heavy-duty pickups on the road? Is it just people want the biggest, meanest thing they can get, or they're really common now?
Well, yeah, and people use them for work, and like you mentioned, for play, people towing those big RVs all over the place.
And I think because of like the comfort, like you had mentioned, without a load, like they actually are pretty decent daily drivers. If you can get over the fact that it's massive, and as long as you
Hard
can
to
get
park anywhere.
Yeah, but I mean, like if you live in Texas or Wyoming,
Right.
where there's a lot of space, like it's even easy. Like around here, it's a little bit different because things are a little bit tighter. But yeah, I mean, like you can actually daily these things are not just work trucks. I mean, you can work it during the day and then go out to dinner at night and just that's the only
Assuming
thing
you can
drive in.
climb up into it.
Yeah, even the Ram's not too bad on that. It's got a higher end side of the
You know what I
fold-down
see a lot
running
of Rams doing is like private transport of cars. Like anytime
Yeah,
around
yeah,
here,
yeah,
like
for
I'm
sure.
always
Yeah.
if you see like a 3 or 4 car trailer,
Right.
it is almost
Yeah.
always being led by a Ram.
Ram
It's
dually,
crazy,
yeah. And that was one of the things we were towing around was a SRT10
Nice.
Ram on a flatbed. We were towing that.
Did
And
you get to drive the SRT?
No, I had to stay on
my
the
God.
trailer. Yeah. No, I remember when it came. We got into a bunch of stories about that. One other thing I should mention: there's a Power Wagon version. We did some off-roading in that. It's got all the full locking front and rears, this sway bar disconnect.
Is it
all
a
kind of
short bed
crazy
or
stuff.
anything? Didn't they used to have a short bed?
Yeah, no, you can get the long bed
Yeah.
still. I think it's only Hemi though. I don't think you can get the diesel
Right.
Power Wagon. But of course they got 3 different cabs: regular, crew, and the mega cab, 6-foot bed or 8-foot bed, and pretty much like every combination of that you could possibly come up with, you can get.
Boy, Ram has certainly come a long way. I remember, when it was the Dodge Ram, they were still sort of like the also Ram, but man, I mean, they're, I don't know, they seem like they go back and forth with Chevy as number 2. I don't know what they are today.
As far as heavy duties, I don't know what the numbers are either. But
Thanks, Brian. Very good. Anybody got any other comments before we move on? That sort of took our breath away, but let's get it back. All right. We've got another truck to talk about. A much smaller truck, but one that's right in the heart of the very popular, increasingly popular mid-size pickup truck market. We're going to be talking about the Nissan Frontier. It's been, of course, a small truck staple for decades. The current generation's been around since 2022. And then when you compare it to its main rivals from Toyota, Ford, and GM, it's the only one that still has a V6. So for 2025, it does get a refresh. Jessica, just how fresh is it?
It's still pretty fresh, I think. But in a way, like it is very traditional. Right? It's like maybe not like the freshest thing out there, and that's the good thing. This is so bad.
Keep going.
This is so bad the way I'm explaining this. Traditional. No, I mean, I think
it's a truck.
It's a truck.
It is a
And it's
truck.
not afraid of
It's a
it.
truck.
And I think and I'll tell this very quick story. I knew a guy who he had an F-150, and he was older, probably in his 60s, and he
Older.
Thank you very much. Can we move this right along?
Jeez,
Classic.
great start. Anyway, but he got one with push to start, and he
So no key.
no key, and he could not get over that fact. So there was multiple times where the guy would forget that the car was not in park because it was quiet, and
yeah.
it would turn off, and he would get out of the car,
Yeah.
and then the truck, and it would keep running, right? Or it would
Right.
move. So
Terrifying.
I know, awful. He traded it in for a Frontier when Frontier was the only truck offering a key.
Still had a key.
Still had a key. And in my mind, and this must have been like
This is
21.
it was the
21.
last generation
Last
before the
generation.
22 change.
And I'm thinking,
Because a friend of mine did the same thing.
like, that's the buyer of
Yep.
a Nissan Frontier right there. Like, somebody who just wants a simple, traditional truck.
But I'll also say they are a high value truck. I know a couple of people
Yes.
that have been out there looking. They've looked at, Toyota, they've looked around. And when they get to Nissan, they are attracted by the fact you can get a V6, but you get more for your money.
Correct.
Yeah,
I mean, and
anyway.
we say that about a lot
Yep.
of Nissans,
We do
of
indeed.
course, and it's the same here. And I think specifically a lot of their body on frame stuff doesn't have the, I don't know, stigma that some of their smaller
Mm-hmm.
cars do, because the front, it's a great vehicle. That V6 is great. They have a 9-speed automatic in it now. The powertrain is modern. There is no key that is push to start
Right,
these days. But the numbers are still very respectable. 310 horsepower.
They didn't change when they did the major change in 22. They had already updated the engine even before the change.
Yeah.
But they really didn't change a lot about it. They modernized it, but it looked pretty much the same. The profile was pretty much the same, et cetera. I like the fact that you can still get a king cab on it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
An extended cab.
And the king cab that you can get on almost every trim level. It's not just like the base work truck S model. You can get it, I think, on 2 or 3 different trims. Plus, this is also the big one too, is there's a 6-foot bed that's available.
So you get the king cab with a 6-foot bed, and you don't have this small behemoth.
Correct.
And I mean that because some of the crew cab smaller pickups are still awfully long.
But also they offer that 6-foot bed on almost every trim. You could get that on a fully loaded SL, which again is kind of rare, right? Most of the time you can just only find the 5-foot bed. So it seems like they've thought a lot about the configuration of this vehicle and the trim levels that people would be interested in. And also, I mean, the towing capacity is not the most in the class, but it's now up to about 7,100 pounds. So it's still really respectable for people who just want a simple truck that can tow. And
Seems plenty high for a mid-size. What tows more than that?
7,500 is. I think
that's right.
The Chevys, the Chevy and the GMC can do.
That sounds about right.
But I mean, but then again, when you're kind of getting up to about 7,000 pounds,
a full-size pickup truck.
Pickup truck at that
Anything
point.
over 3,500, I would want to.
Yeah. And then of course, the interior gets a larger optional infotainment screen. But I want to focus in on the interior because again, it's a truck on the inside. One thing it doesn't have is a column shifter, but it doesn't have a button shifter. It has a traditional gear shifter, and tons of buttons, knobs, stuff that's very easy to see, easy to touch, easy to change. And it's you're thinking to yourself, wow, I can't believe that this is something that's important to note in a vehicle.
Sure is
wow,
today.
The buttons are so easy.
Yeah.
But everything has physical gauges as well. It's just it is what it is.
It's modern, but it's old school.
Yeah. Yes, it has all the convenience features that you want to, because you can get heated seats, heated steering wheel,
and it's got all the safety
phone
stuff,
charger, all the safety stuff. I mean, it drives like a truck on the road, exactly as you're expecting. I don't know. You can decide whether that's good or bad for some people, but I think
that was the first impression I had. It's a truck that drives like a truck, and it's not afraid of it. It's more truck-like than the Ram heavy duties. As far as,
you're probably right about that. Yeah.
Well, it's so many. I mean, we get comments all the time. I think the Ram Heavy Duty is probably, or any other Super Duty that we've tested, right? You show the interiors of these things, and people are like, I don't want all that.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't want it.
I don't want all these safety features. I don't want all this nanny stuff. I just want something that's a truck, or just something simple.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist, but.
Yeah. And like you said, this is a lot of bang for your buck. So technically, Nissan will tell you this starts around a little over 32,000. But at destination, and if you actually want to get a 4x4, you're looking at closer to 35,000. But I don't know. I still think that's a pretty decent deal.
What's a Tacoma and a Ranger?
Well, it's they all start around there, but the Tacoma
they escalate
has so
quickly.
many trim levels that the top end of a Tacoma these days is $65,000. Same with Ranger, with the Raptor, that's $65,000. I mean,
if you've not the thing that, including my family, if you have not been in a modern mid-sized truck, you don't realize how big they've gotten.
Yeah.
I mean, they really are the size of a full-size
It's
truck.
only mid-size because everything else has gotten bigger.
That's right.
Full-size is way bigger, and now so it's all about context. So it's mid-size only because full sizes are so much bigger.
Yeah, if you pull up against next to an 80s era, Ford F-Series full-size truck, you're just about as big, if not as big. The only thing you don't have maybe is 4 foot between the wheel wells. That's just about it.
Yeah, and physically they're about, they're big, but inside they're still not quite as roomy.
You're right. They're not as wide easily.
You definitely do feel like you're in a midsize once you're inside. I think like Nissan, their whole lineup is offering more for less than everybody else.
They're trying to take something out of the Hyundai book.
You get into a Sentra, you get into an Altima, you get into some of the more of their passenger cars. It's like, okay, yeah, I kind of see where they cut the corners.
Mm-hmm.
To me, when I hopped into this, it was like, oh, wow, like I feel like I'm getting the same as those others, but for a cheaper price. I couldn't quite tell where they were cheaping out because like it kind of checked all the boxes I have. As somebody who I currently don't own a pickup truck, but like I want a pickup truck for all the reasons that Jess basically said, like all those buttons and knobs. And it feels different than all those other Nissans because like it doesn't feel cheap. It just is cheap, as like price wise. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it probably lacks some of the sound insulation and some of the things that make the cars today so like a cocoon to drive in. But I like the sounds. I mean, most of us grew up with all the engine noises and going over a bump, and you knew it was a body-on-frame vehicle because it wiggled around a little bit and made some noise. I don't know. It's a truck. It's a true truck experience that's, of course, dying away.
I think the one thing that I posted some pictures of it on my Twitter account. I'm not going to call it X, but my Twitter account when we had it in. And I think the biggest complaint was on the interior, underneath the 12-inch touchscreen, it just says Frontier in big letters, and just reminding you like what you're in. It was that was like a little corny. But
that is also
that falls in line with truck design.
Yeah, I think so
Ram
too.
will tell you like everybody wants to see Ram on the tailgate.
Yeah, I agree. The outgoing truck that it replaced, I remember we replaced in 22. I think around 20 or so, I rented one, and they had kept it in production for a very long time with no changes. So you got in it, and there were no USB ports. I mean, there was a radio, but it was all manual. And it was like it stayed around a little too long. I hope that they will keep this truck for a long time, but won't be afraid to at least spend a little money on modernizing the interior so it doesn't become kind of ancient again.
I guess the only thing this doesn't have is a manual transmission.
Yeah.
But they got rid of that in the
Long
change
time
of
ago.
the. Well, I don't remember the last time they offered it. Maybe like 20.
Yeah.
Because remember when we went to the Chicago Auto Show and that guy drove 1 million miles?
Yep, and they brought that in. That was the unveiling.
one?
That was the unveiling of the new model, wasn't it?
No, it was of the new engine.
That was
They were
it. The
putting
new engine.
like
That's
year
right.
before the new
And they
model.
were. Yep, that's what
He
it
put
was.
800,000 on the original clutch. I still can't believe that.
Anybody else? Going once, going twice on Nissan Frontier. Thanks, Jessica. I want to let everyone know that there's an alternate way to get all of our MotorWeek information, and we're not talking about broadcast or cable or even YouTube. It is our MotorWeek app. It's been out there for about 9 months now. You can get all of our videos on it. A lot of very good information. It is free from your app store. Works on just about all phones and tablets. Not trying to sell you anything on it either, so that makes it kind of unique. Along with all of our MotorWeek road test videos and features, it includes a unique EV Everything tab. So if you're curious about EVs, not necessarily even in the market, you click on that and you get all the specs for all the EVs on sale now and that have been on sale, so new and used. So we invite you, if you're tied to your phone but you still like MotorWeek, download that MotorWeek app today. Take it with you and you will never miss a mile of MotorWeek. Our lightning round is up next. We give our panelists 30 seconds or so but we're not really clocking them, to get on an automotive topic of choice. Here it goes. For the last few years, the average transaction price of a new car has hovered just under $50,000, and that doesn't seem to be changing anytime soon. So recently, our friends at Jalopnik posed a question to their readers. What car would you buy if it was $20,000 cheaper? Basically, if you could knock $20,000 off the MSRP of a new car on sale today, what would you be interested in? That's a really good question.
Who wrote that at Jalopnik?
My friend Andy.
That's a good question. So the idea is take a car today that might be a little more expensive than you want to go, but if you could knock 20 grand off of it, what one would rise to the top of your choices?
Yeah, I can't choose just one, so I'll list a couple.
What's your list?
I went right through. Yeah, believe it or not, my first one's actually electric, an Ioniq 5N.
Yeah.
That's a good choice.
Ioniq 5N. I think if you knock 20 grand off of that, I become very, very interested. That is one of the best electric vehicles I've ever driven because it's, while it's simulated performance in terms of like shifting and sound, like I'm cool with that. Like throw me in that matrix any day of the week. GR Corolla, I'd be right on board with that. And that's already fairly affordable, but I'd like to see that come down a little bit. Nissan Z Nismo, I think should.
You stole
be,
mine.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
think that should be cheaper. Sorry, and I maybe I should stop there. I don't
No. Go on. This is good. You put a lot of thought into
because
this.
I am a family man. ID Buzz, you knock off.
Very good. Yes.
I'm all.
So you're
about
going to
that.
have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Jessica.
I think, this one was kind of hard. I was like thinking back, like all the cars that we've driven, and I'm like, man, yeah, if that was
I literally
cheaper.
used our MotorWeek app and scrolled through all of
There
our
you
road
go.
tests and just said this one, this one, this one.
I think the first thing that came to my mind was a 718 Boxster. I
Thought
think
about that.
Mm-hmm.
just because we talked kind of recently of just how crazy, just like in the last like 5 to 10 years, the prices for Porsches have gotten. So yeah,
Thought about 911, but you knock 20 grand off a 911, it's still 100 grand.
Yeah.
yeah, you knock 20 grand off a Boxster.
It's still
you're
expensive.
You're
Yeah.
looking at like 55,000 rather than 75,000, and I like that a lot. And then honestly, like I hate to be that person, but probably like a Jeep Wrangler, like a Sport S.
Okay.
I think they now like kind of go for like $45,000. Yeah, if I could get one for 25 grand, for sure, I would buy a new Jeep.
Brian.
So we don't have to go specifically cars. Is that correct?
Nope. Anything
go-
else?
We got
Yeah.
SUVs.
I literally
and
listed like
minivans.
half the cars.
No
in
boats
existence.
and trailers. but
What are you
Every-
thinking? What
I got it.
wheeled thing
Yeah.
are you thinking?
I got nothing. Everything should be $20,000 cheaper. As far
Yeah,
as I'm
that's true.
concerned.
I don't disagree with that.
Certainly, any Jeep could be $20,000. It's cheaper, and then just be priced right. I don't know what's a base MX-5 go for these days.
Like 30,
Yeah.
35?
If I could,
Probably too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
I could take 20 off that.
Yeah.
And get one for 15 grand. Yeah, that's a no-brainer.
No, somebody in the comments.
Miata RF.
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
adds a
Fixed
little
roof,
bit.
yeah.
The fixed roof one. You take 20 grand off of that.
Yeah.
That's a sweet car.
Somebody.
That's all I got.
Someone in the comments of the Jalopnik article said a Chevy Trax,
Oh, wow. Well,
so that they would just get a car for free. And you know what?
Yep.
True.
yep.
Fair.
Greg actually hit most of my hot buttons.
yeah.
I will
I listed
add
so many.
I will add a couple
You guys
to
are a
it.
similar generation.
Not
do
not
hang
by
out
a
a lot.
long shot. The Dodge Charger Daytona.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
I
a good
would
pick.
be very
call, that.
inclined to that. And the other would be, and we just had the latest one in here, is the just about any BMW 4 Series, i.e. the old 3
Yeah.
Series.
That's a good.
You know,
That's a good.
there, it's just does everything that I would want a car to do. So
I was thinking M2. That was on the
Yeah.
cusp of my list. I feel like knock 20 off an M2. I'd be really interested.
oh, fun. Okay, Michael. I kind of not Michael.
That's a real
that was
question.
just
That was
Michael's
Andy.
coming
Now
up.
we're moving to
Michael's the
Michael.
viewer question, but that was very interesting. Hit the bell. The official end of our lightning round. And now we are going to move on to our question from a fan. Michael has asked a very interesting question, and I actually had to sit down and think about this for about 2 seconds. It says, when MotorWeek takes cars through the slalom testing portion, why don't you show what speed you're able to take the various cars through this test? We know that small sports cars will be faster than trucks or the SUVs, but it would still be nice to know how fast the individual vehicles can go through the cones at. Okay, why don't we do that? We don't do it because our test gear, and this goes back to the beginning of the show, is not really set up for anything other than straight line acceleration. And we just don't have a way of accurately measuring it. We could put, with all the new camera technologies, easily put a camera in there and show you what the speedometer says, but speedometers are all over the place and they're not necessarily that accurate. But I have to say, Michael, you've given us something to think about. Greg, go ahead.
I try to give anecdotal evidence, like to Robinson when I give.
And we say that all the time, like we've gone at a good clip or
40. Well, I think another reason is that we're not necessarily testing our own driving prowess or things like that.
We have different drivers doing the test.
We could run to try to get through in the quickest time, and that's, to me, that's sort of like a byproduct of like how the car handles. So like, I'm not trying to hit a speed, but if I get to that speed, that I take note of it. I mean, I think we're more trying to feel what everything feels like, and kind of like really hammer inputs and see how the suspension reacts to steering inputs and how the steering itself feels.
Right.
Speed is not really our priority.
It's not really our priority, and it becomes very muddy when you have very different people doing the test on different days. I will say that I don't know if they still do it, but when you look at some of the others that do track testing, the same person does the track testing all the time, or at least over a period of a year or two until they change personnel. So there's some consistency there.
And I think the only thing we have close to a standard to is entry speed, which is around 35.
Right.
I think I upped it a little bit lately because we have more space on the track.
And also the cars have gotten better.
Right, exactly. So like you try to hit the same entry speed, and then again, even though you're not trying to get to a certain speed, even if you do have that anecdotal evidence, it's like, okay, now you have like that baseline. I started at 35 and ended at 45. You know what I mean? So it is nice to have like that basic starting point. But beyond that, I'm just trying to...
You're trying to feel how the vehicle responds. Yeah. Brian, do you have anything to add to that?
A few extra minutes, I'll have a little fun.
No, just hitting that point that you just made. It's really about getting a subjective impression on how it feels and how it handles. It's really not about like hard numbers.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like it's just not that important of a metric, really, when in the overall.
Not for what we're trying to do.
Correct.
Because different people lay out cone courses differently. We used to have the shortest distance between cones of almost anybody that was doing what we're doing because we didn't have a long enough track. Now we have a longer track, and we basically. I don't recall whether we've actually expanded that or not, but anyway.
When we moved to Mason-Dixon, I moved it a little bit more because we had more space.
We had more space.
Yeah. So I think I forget what it was at 75-80, but I remember us talking about it, and because we had the extra space, I expanded it like just a tad, like literally just a few feet.
But again, it's all about feeling what the vehicle is doing because we don't have the advantage of taking it out on a road course every week. We do, our tried and true, most of our testing is at a drag strip. So we want to get the impressions that otherwise we'd be getting at a road course. So, but Michael, it was a very good question, and I think it caused us to actually stop and think about it for a couple of minutes.
Well, it's one of those things that like being like a show that's been doing the same thing for 45 years.
I mean, we have been instrumented testing forever. Yeah, and in I think one of the things that is so great about the staff on this program is that as cars have evolved, they've come back from these test sessions and say, everything can do this well now. We need to up the ante a little bit.
Yeah.
And we have so many different. How many people have done track testing now? It's like me, you, Jess, Alex, Kyle, Logan.
Right.
Like currently, and then if you include Scriv.
Yeah.
Like almost like 10 people.
Yeah, it's a lot of
who
people.
Are capable or not, not doing it all the time.
Yeah, for those
or
of you.
At some point in their career, did it.
Well, even I used to do it, folks. I mean, once upon a time. No, one of the things about the staff of our show is everybody multitasks, and I don't use that term lightly. Greg is a producer. He's a reporter, and he's also one of our top drivers. Brian Robinson writes most of the road tests that you hear coming out of my mouth, and yet he's also a phenomenal rider both of cars and of motorcycles. And so, and Jessica is just an all-around superstar. So,
Well, thanks.
My point is we all contribute to all parts of the show, including the testing of cars. So when you hear our test, and I think this is another important point, they are an amalgamation of a lot of different people's experiences. It's not one or two people that drove the vehicle and wrote about it, and there you are. So
I think one of my favorite things is like when you hear a line and it's like, our staff thought, da-da-da, you know?
Yeah,
it's like,
and it's true.
Collective.
It's true. Even when I don't agree. Okay.
That goes to show that, like, you're not a dictator over it, right?
No, maybe benevolent one, maybe, or something. No, I'm the folks that go out and test our vehicles every week. As you're seeing right now with all those tests we did at Roebling in the snow, truly remarkable group of people.
What a week.
What'd you say?
I just said, what a week that was.
What a week that was. Our last car that's in the spotlight today, and it is a car, and it's the new BMW M5. A nameplate that conjures up only the best memories of super high performance motoring. And while I don't think the new car is really changes that, it's still an M5. It is an M5 with a difference. Greg, why don't you take it from there?
Yeah, whoa, quite a car. It's
awesome.
Quite a car. Starting with the size, it's a very, very big. Very
Hefty.
big
It's
car.
not a
Hefty guy.
small,
It's well documented.
it's hardly even mid-size anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I stood in front of it, and like just standing in front of it with no motion, it's like intimidating because the thing comes up like to my hip. If that thing hits me, man, that's not going to feel good.
And Greg's tall.
The reason it's so heavy, or one of the reasons it's so heavy, is it's a plug-in hybrid now.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want an M5, it is a plug-in hybrid. But the cool thing about that, if you're not into the whole PHEV thing, electrification, it still has a twin-turbo V8, which is why it's just so darn fast, like really stupid fast. like to the point where you need to take this thing to a racetrack, drag strip, whatever, to experience it to its full abilities, because it's just a lot of car for the street. It's an okay daily driver. I don't know, man. It's just so there's
Awfully
so much
sensitive.
power. It's sensitive,
Yeah.
and there's so many inside. I mean, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but like, there's so many screens and buttons and settings and different things, and there are so many drive settings, suspension, traction control, regen braking. It's like you constantly just want to play with all this stuff. And if you owned one, again, we're only with this car for a few days at a time, so you kind of got to, have a crash course on it. But I would imagine you would kind of find a nice groove on it. But for somebody just hopping into it, it's a whole lot. We did take this one to the drag strip. Like, is this going to air by the time this podcast airs?
No,
I don't know if I'm
I
giving
don't think
anything
so.
away. Yeah.
I mean, it's okay
give it
if
away.
you spoil
Yeah,
it.
go ahead.
Feel free to spoil
Spoiler
it.
alert.
Oh, no,
We
I'll
live in
just...
the modern world, like,
Yeah.
with digital.
Yeah, I mean, we did beat BMW's factory estimate 0 to 60. I think we got 3.1 around there. I don't have those numbers off the top of my head. That's very fast, and
Especially for a non-pure EV.
yeah. And it's. I think I wrote it in my notes to Brian. Like, this was the first time in a while where I was really taken aback and surprised by the launch. I was just trying to figure out how the system worked, and I did my first one, and it was shocking, no pun intended, because you have that instant hit of electric torque, but you also have a V8 twin turbo that's just like hammering the ground with power. It's all-wheel drive, so that's, again, like, if you're close your ears if you're a BMW M purist, all-wheel drive here. But even then, it was struggling for traction. I mean, there was just so much power trying to get to the ground. It was sliding at first. I mean, there's sounds happening. There's electric torque. I'm trying to work the wheel. Like, there was just so much happening at launch. Probably the hardest launching BMW I've ever tested.
But I saw the video, and the car did the old school squat before it took off, which you don't really see that much in most of the modern cars. So it looked just sitting there at the line. it looked so menacing. It looked like, some raging bull coming out of a pen.
It's not like a Porsche where, like, when you hit launch, so launch control is super easy. Again, BMW's come a long way with launch control. You used to have to, like, put it in a certain program and push the shifter. It was a whole thing. Now you turn off stability control or put it into sport, whatever that is. Left foot on the brake, left foot on the gas, let go of the brake, and you're gone. So, it doesn't, like a Porsche, when you do that, it revs really high, and it's like an experience because that engine is just like, this thing is not quite as high. Like, it doesn't rev very high, but like as soon as you let go of that brake, man, it's just all hell breaks loose. And I will say we were probably at the track on the perfect day because the air temperature was cold, but the track temperature was actually fairly decent.
From the sun.
It was like 30. It was like 30.
It was
low
30,
30s?
It was 30-degree air temp. I didn't take the track temp, but like to the touch, it wasn't that because it had been warm.
Right.
And the sun was beating down on the track. So we had that perfect combination of dense, cold air for the engine and just enough traction for the tires. So that's probably why we beat BMW's estimates. But then all the way down the quarter mile, man, there's no interruption in power for each shift. And each shift is just like it's sending you back into your seat or sending you forward and then back into your seat. It's just a real experience that I truly enjoyed. And to me, that's where I'm talking about where you really need to be on a track or in, like, at the very least, like a wide open road with no police around to experience this thing because I don't think I enjoyed it as much as a daily driver as I think that a 5 Series should be. Even an M5, like I feel like there should be a little bit more comfort to it on a daily basis. But really impressive car. If BMW can kind of figure out how to soften up the interior tech. I mean, there's so much tech inside that nice screen when you're sitting there. You got the gauge screen, which flows directly into the center screen. Like, it's beautiful looking up there, but there's just a lot of like haptic buttons, a lot of things, a lot of lights.
All the ambient lighting, that's like overload.
It is, man. It's like I think it's sensory overload a little bit, which kind of turned me off. But to each his own.
I keep waiting for the last M5 that will be a true collectible. In other words, the last V8 M5. I wonder if this is it. I mean, the last one, I thought that one's going to be.
I mean, I guess you could say that with this one being a V8 and the first PHEV because you have to imagine going forward, it's either going to be all electric or PHEV from here on out. But, man, super impressive. I keep dreaming about that launch.
And then we did mention it's got a fairly sizable battery for 25 miles.
Oh, yeah.
EV only driving.
It's a real PHEV.
What's that?
How big is the battery? Like
I don't
20?
remember. 20
I just
some.
read it last
25?
night.
It doesn't matter. It's 25 miles.
It's 25 miles.
Between that, the thing is just so heavy, but obviously enough power to overwhelm it. Yeah, we didn't mention 717 horsepower, which is 100 more than the competition version last year.
Yep,
and that's all the electric motor, isn't it?
Yeah, the gas V8 is actually down detuned a little bit from last year.
Yeah, it's claimed 190 mile per hour top speed, and I'm sure that's electronically limited because this thing just feels like it would go forever. And the price starts at like 123 grand. I think ours was spec'd over 130.
I'll take 2.
And that's just hard to swallow. I mean, again, amazing performance, but you're talking about an M5 that at one point was sort of kind of attainable.
Well, the first M5 that we ever took to Roebling, it didn't make it. We got to Fayetteville, North Carolina, and I was driving it down, and we had a problem with it, I should say. But that car was it wasn't even 50 grand.
Well, that's why.
Yeah.
But I'll say like 50 grand back in when
Oh, it had to be early 90s, I guess.
I would say like 50 grand in like 1985 is like 150 grand now.
That's point people are saying all the time for justifying
like
these prices.
If you're in the market for a 5 Series, and there's plenty of people who will go and get like the top trim they can because they can afford it, there's nothing wrong with that. I think you should just really take this on a nice, thorough test drive and make sure you're up for the challenge because like it's different than hopping into I guess what would be the comp for Audi, an RS7. I feel like an RS7's a little bit more of like, I understand somebody going into the dealer for an S7 and then comes out with an RS7. You go in for a 5 Series and you come out with an M5, it's like, oh man, like the salesman did it. I might not want to drive next to you for a little bit.
In transparency, the problem that kept us from getting the M5 to Roebling was, again, snow that happened.
Oh, it wasn't the car itself.
Okay, thanks, Greg. And we have one more segment before we wrap up the podcast. My favorite, because nobody ever wants to participate, is the rant and raves.
Do you have one,
rant
John?
Raves.
Like, do you have a rant or a rave?
Nothing that I haven't said before. I get increasingly annoyed with people that don't have any manners on the roads and stuff like that. But that's it.
Let me use that.
And
as
we've
a
talked about the
springboard.
buttons and not having them. And go ahead, Greg.
I'll use that as a springboard, and I really try not to use my rant or rave about driving.
But you
habits.
drive a good distance every day commuting,
and
probably
here's-
more than almost anyone else.
My biggest issue right now is when you use your washer fluid, you wash your windshield, like. Just realize that there are people behind you, and there is nothing wrong.
Very
with doing
good.
it. It's a safety thing. I do it all the time. But to your point, John,
Right.
of manners, just remember
Yes.
that, like, if you can at all help it, try to maybe wait until somebody's not right behind you, or you got a little bit of space on the highway, because that stuff flies up, and then now I got to wash my windshield. The person behind me has to wash their windshield.
Worse yet, you've just finished cleaning the car. It looks good. Now you're going to have spots all over it before you can get somewhere to do anything about it.
Yeah,
That's a very good one.
It's not a huge deal, but I just want to put it in. If you're driving right now, put it in your ear. Like, maybe just take a second and just be aware of your surroundings before you hit that wiper button.
Just think how upset you get when it's wintertime and you're behind a tractor trailer and you're a little too close and they've still got ice or snow off the top.
Yeah. Well, there's
And
not much they can do about that.
Yeah.
Like tractor.
But
trailer.
I'm saying is that's the same thing you're doing to somebody behind you.
Correct.
Right.
Robinson, you look.
Oh, here we go.
You got
No,
some?
but I didn't do it. I'm way ahead of you because I never
You don't
cleaned the
touch
windshield.
it. I drove back all the way back from
You're
Roebling.
like, dude, I can't see it. Hit me up with some.
I pulled a Benny D, man. I'm like, we're driving back from Roebling.
All right, we've been at our track in
salt on the
Savannah.
road, and
Right, it was after the
we finally
snowstorm.
got to states where they use salt, and it's like, I can't see anything, dude, and I'm in the passenger seat. So I had to turn to Robinson. I said, dude, can you hit the wiper? Like, I can't see.
Brian's just driving.
This man does not do it at all. He is arguably too courteous.
I wish I had a picture of how disgustingly dirty that Kia was, too, for you not to use that.
And it took a lot for me to say, because I normally don't care, but like, it was.
But when you couldn't
it was
see out the
extreme.
window, you start to get nervous. Are you going to defend yourself? Nope.
No, I'm the one that brought it up.
I remember when I drove with you, Robinson, my first Roebling, and I
no.
think I was driving.
That was the
for a little bit.
initiation run.
Yeah, I was driving for a little bit, and I turned on like Pop 2K on the Sirius, and then I think like either we switched drivers or something. Robinson never changed the station, and I fell
Doesn't change
asleep.
the radio, the mirror position, the
Change
seat
anything.
position.
He's like, while I'm sleeping, like he was just listening to Pop 2K, like
Well, that's cool because he has an eclectic taste
Right.
in music.
That's right.
I guess that's true. He was fine.
He's a very amenable person.
Enough about me.
Let's just end this.
We're done. Thank you, two-wheeling reporter Brian Robinson, for all of your insights. Our over-the-edge reporter Greg Carlos, our digital producer Jessica Ray. Thanks to everybody listening to the podcast today. If you are wondering what time MotorWeek can be seen on your local public television station, go to our website, motorweek.org, click on the tab Watch MotorWeek, enter your zip code for days and times in your area, or you can hop over to our cable partner, mavtv.com, for their schedule. You can also watch current episodes of MotorWeek and other PBS programming anywhere, anytime with the free PBS app. Download that app right now. And we're proud to announce that recent seasons of MotorWeek are now available on the free streaming service Tubi. All of the individual road tests and feature segments are also available at youtube.com/MotorWeek. We have a saying around here: here that if you have a screen, you can watch MotorWeek. Podcast producer today, Jessica Ray. Audio engineer, Nicole Phillips-Naylor. Thank you, Nicole. Podcast creator, Bob Mixter. Till next time, I'm John Davis, and thank you for being a part of MotorWeek.
You have been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by Auto Value and Bumper to Bumper and TireRack.com. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at motorweek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series each week on your local PBS station.